So I don't know why, but today I was thinking about the Alanis Morissette song, Isn't it ironic to think it's like rain on your wedding day? They have weddings there all day, every day. So, isn't it ironic? No, but I have notes because we are still talking about Tyra. Okay, this is actually the first video, but I want to talk about the second video first. Okay, so these are notes. I watched Tyra's, it was a 20-minute video. It's called What is the Meaning of Life? I took notes on it. That's what we're here to talk about today. Welcome to class, ladies and gentlemen. I am the most energetic teacher who has not had coffee yet. Okay, so, now I decided actually to really go in on this one. So if you look in the description box, you will see a Substack video where I've already written this down, but we're just like going over the notes again, just so that in case you don't read that, you can just watch the video. You can just watch me say what I wrote, right? I write my own scripts. Thank you very much. Anyway, okay. So what is the meaning of life? I don't know. Like, I do think, like, some people like to answer that question from this, like, religious place where they're like, it has to do with God, and they're like, be fruitful and multiply and blah, blah, blah. I've talked about this extensively on this channel. I think that black women in America should stop reproducing. The reason I believe that is because I believe that black children fare better in Africa. I think that if you seek to have a family and you are black in America, you should get your money right, do that shit in Africa, and then have them like do a tourist visa or something in America. Like, there's many ways if you want to experience American prosperity to do that. After you have established your culture and roots where they are, I just don't see it being a palatable place that is suitable for black life. I've talked about that extensively here, so like we don't really need to like roll back. But it's interesting to hear this girl, because she's in Jamaica, and she's asking that question. It's a good question. It's a fair question. Like, I hear her. But it's like, it's twofold, because she's basically like frustrated with the fact that she's working class and has to keep working, and is asking the question like, why are there other people who are not working class? And it's like, because generational wealth is a thing and you don't have it, and that's okay, because everybody's not going to be generationally wealthy. But if you're not generationally wealthy, you gotta work, and that's just the way of the world. It's like, capitalism's a cold game, right? But then she was also so she ends up like quitting her job, and when I saw all the other like social commentators talking about this, they focused on that as being like the primary thing that caused her to like spiral. That definitely was not the cause of her spiral. The cause of her spiral was the religious fundamentalism that her family pushed her into. And then it was also this like lack of clarity around her, and the isolation that she was feeling, basically being a brown-skinned exotical. That was her struggle. And that's exactly why I continue saying, we have to keep talking. We lost one. It was really sad. At the same time, like, we're not gonna lose a lot more because we actually have community. That's another reason too I like to make distinctions. Like, I've said this many times, I fall somewhere right between like Kelly Stamps and Sensei Aishi Matsu, and now we've got a third party of this, like the brown skin exotical. So there's like 3 spaces that are kind of polarly opposite, and here's me sitting in the middle of all of them. We're somewhere in the middle, and that's okay. That's actually good, because you don't need to agree with everything that I'm saying. If you don't agree with some stuff, or even just know that my disagreement exists and there's nothing that you can do about it, and then like go, explore another person who has an opinion that is not mine, that you agree with more. a lifestyle, what the fuck ever. But just know that like there's never going to be one person who you're like, oh my God, I agree with everything that they said. But this girl, it sounded like the lived experience that she was going through, she had no one who related to any part of her existence where she was. And that is when people start calling you crazy, because they want to change her and make her like them, even though she's not like them. But we already unpacked this with Kendrick Lamar. Remember when he went on tour on the NFL stage and he was like, not like us, not like us, not like us. And we were all like, woo, not like us. Yeah, that happened. Remember? You were there. We all saw it. It was literally on the biggest stage in the world. It happened. That's how it is. There's like them, and then there's us. Different. And this girl, some people call it trying to fit a square into a circle. It ain't gonna work, you see? But I think let's also bring this back to that point that I made about how all winning teams are the same and all losing teams are the same, right? Winning teams have winners. Now, I think the main part of Tyra here, where she was like, she missed it, she was not surrounding herself with winners. Like, it sounded like all her coworkers were losers. Like, she was like a Miss Universe, so clearly like there wasn't no other like pretty girls around her to like identify with her lived experience. So she's like everywhere around her, everybody's gaslighting her. I don't know if I have talked to you guys about this, but when I was living in Hercules, it was kind of like that. Like, it was a very senior citizen town. Everybody was old. I mean, they were like deathly old. Like, everybody is a senior citizen and you're living in this suburb. I think the only person who was even remotely similar to me was like BJ, but BJ's like the boy version of me. Like, he literally like kind of looks like me, but he's like the male version. But he's like, we don't like each other. So it's just like him living there did nothing for me. And then it was like, I think the one girl who was like my age, she was like this Mexican pick-me-sha girl. So she was always in this like dramatic relationship with her boyfriend. That was fucking strange. And there was just nobody else. That whole town was full of like old dead people, and it was me and her. So you can't grow in a space like that. Like, you can't grow at all. You might as well just like die, because like you can't live. Like, to live is to be alive, and if you stop being alive, then you stop living. So what she was doing anyway was like, stop being life. So, I mean, I'm just saying, like, she had another option. She could have moved. Like, moving would have been the solution to a very large portion of her problems, because then she just would have been exposed to a larger population of people who have different lived experiences, hopefully some that are similar enough to something that she's gone through. Anyway, let's go back to our list. So she says, like, nobody knows me. I wrote about this because that's like a very classic SZA lyric. Even if you live in like a very shit town where everybody's like old and they go to the Cracker Barrel or something, if you know, you know, you can still have Apple Music, so you can still get music videos. And hopefully, if you're black, you would have found that SZA song where she's literally like, nobody understands me, nobody. The whole song is like that. It's just like, okay. Like, SZA could have been her like very easy introduction into sad girl music, but also, if you're here, then you understand that like we live here. This is our home. Like, sad girl music is what we were raised on. So it's unfortunate she hadn't found us yet, and we hadn't found her until after she died. But may she rest in peace and find a better playlist, because like, we have been here, okay, and we've got trilogies of albums talking about these feelings that unfortunately caused her demise. Anyway, moving on. There was another thing I thought was interesting. She talks about like how she goes to this party, and then after the party she didn't shower, and she was like, oh my God, am I nasty or am I just depressed? And it was like, ooh, wait, what? So let's give this a name. I don't have to name it because most of my read talks about it, and basically everybody who's Black on TikTok has been talking about this for the last 3 years. See why it's useful to understand TikTok? Prime example. But it's called the Hygiene Olympics. See, I don't have to keep my ear to the streets because Myri is like the little TikToker. Her and Kiana, they keep their ear to the streets. And Mariana, that girl. So, like, I don't have to be a little, like, TikToker out there because if something is trendy enough and is important enough, they will literally make a video explaining this Gen Z mumbo jumbo that is important enough for us to need to know. That's why I know what this is. Okay, like I didn't research this, and I'm not like on TikTok. So, but even I know what it is because Myri made a video about it. Anyway, so she goes down this whole rant, and it was like, ooh, okay, well she missed all of those conversations. But then she just goes on this it was a real like sorrowful rant about bills. And I get it because when I started adulting, girl, I was worse than like, at least okay. Everything really does come back to Beyonce because this is Beyonce's internet. I don't care what nobody else says. Like, everything goes back to Beyonce. So remember when Beyonce taught us about bills in the song called Bills, 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 where she's literally waving around a bill with Tina in the back with the bill? Remember that? Like, remember? Like, yes, that did really happen. And that was an important conversation. Because, like, everybody got bills. Like, everybody has bills. Not like some people. Like, everybody has bills. Even this girl. So I think she's under this impression that, like, maybe because she has more bills to her name and she's not splitting bills, that is harder for her. But, like, I could just tell you from another side, you know, like, being a trust fund baby is not, like, it's not as easy as it seems. And what I'm saying to that is, like, you might think because your, you know, middle class problems have worn you down and it's like so hard to clock into the 9 to 5 or whatever. And you think because someone else has like a trust fund and you don't know the things that they're struggling with, that their life is easier than yours. Simply because they don't have the same financial struggles that you have, but you don't know their life. And that is another reason I've talked extensively about, like, well, not extensively, but I've talked enough about, like, my family and finance, right? To understand the complexity of, like, I knew at a very young age, my family's money is not my money. And I think some trust fund people don't understand that. They get the, like, rude wake up call where it's like, bitch, you've been cut off. And then you're like, oh, shit. Like, and your whole world falls apart. But if you kind of start from a place where you're like, yeah, their money ain't my money. And I think this girl kind of needed to have that sort of wake up call. Like, girl, you don't got no money because, like, you don't have no money. That's it. Like, you can go, though, build something. Like, she was like, if you don't have anything, how do you start something? Except here she is starting her YouTube channel. Like, she pressed upload and then she started. So she, like, answered her own question and then was like, I don't know. That's how you do it. That's another reason I will keep saying, like, the Emma Chamberlain of it all. Like, that bitch was a genius. Like, she legitimately taught everybody how to start and then how to, like, capitalize. That's the answer. Like, and I feel like I've been saying this, but let's make it clear, because maybe somebody always has to die for people to get the lesson. So let's use this girl's death to learn the lesson. Your life and your lived experiences are specific to you and only you. Even if the 12 people in your neighborhood all know your business and they all gossip about it, I don't live in your neighborhood and I don't know your loser friends, okay? But if there's some tea, I for sure want to know. And if it's hot enough, I'm going to find out anyway. So, like, tell. That's the point. Tell. Like, I want to know. Also, if your tea ain't hot, then you're not getting read anyway, so like maybe don't spill. But the point is, like, your story is novel and your story is unique. Your life is unique. And I think like this girl was just under the impression that like her life, like she didn't see the uniqueness of her experience. Like she was just very, very pretty, living in Jamaica, and had done international travel. That in itself is a whole ass story, because everybody in Jamaica, all the other black girls are broke. They can't go anywhere. Like, and this girl's like, you know, she's got her degree. She's like traveled and done all this shit. She couldn't find any other blogger from another part of the world and be like, look at their experience. It's so different from mine. Maybe I could try to find any sort of similarity and like parallel my storytelling ability and match it with theirs. And she couldn't do that. Okay, like, well, I don't know. I will say though, it does feel like, and she talked about this a lot, she was like, I'm being targeted. And when I like, as I looked a little more, I really felt like I just stepped where I sat and like, oh, that's awful. I literally did. All right, well, whatever. She said she was being targeted, and I was like, really? And then I listened a little more, and it was actually very clear that she was being targeted. Like, her family members and her religious groups and her boss were basically I can't describe it, because she sort of described some of it, but she didn't go into like that much detail. But it basically sounds like her behavior was unfamiliar to the community that she was living in. They designated her behavior as, you know, out of line in some way, or unknown, or, you know, crazy basically. And they were like, we need to get you help. And it's like, instead of getting her help, they never sat down and talked to her. They all like prosecuted her as a group. And I do want to I want to stop there for a second. I guess this was kind of, maybe I'll just actually make this one. So this is like the 2 episodes. The 1 episode is the one where she's like, I am, what is it called? She's like, this is the story of my life. This is my story. And the point here is, and I've seen this happen multiple times, especially in America, and especially for first-gen continental Africans. Okay, when everyone is sitting here talking about assimilation, the reason that they're talking about assimilation is because American society is not Jamaican society. Like, the developed world is not the developing world, like, at all. Like, it's not similar. And I think that, like, there are too many people who are under the impression that, like, you know, this ain't Kansas. You know what I'm saying? Like that classic quote from The Wizard of Oz, like, where you got to be like, yeah, no, girl, this is not like the place where you're living on like 2 pesos or something. I don't know how to put it, but like her little town in Jamaica is not like her international travel to London or like to America. Like, they're not even similar. And so after she had that experience, and it sounds like even before, a lot of her life was modeled after being a modern woman. But being a modern woman means you have money, and like you can buy shit, and you can like make decisions. That is so different from most of the women in the world. And I've just said this a billion, gajillion, quadrillion times. But, like, I had to point this out specifically in Tennessee because it was shocking. Like, everywhere I go, people would be like, oh, my God, but you're black. But then I haven't seen a black person like you. And you have to be like, there are 54 countries in Africa. And every single country has different ethnicities. And not all the black people in Africa look the same. Ethiopia is one country with 92 ethnicities. We are not all similar. And you have to, like, fucking break that shit down. And then they'll be like, oh my God. So that's how your story is novel. If you are legitimately in a space where your tribe is not there and you do anything, that's fucking novel. When every person, here's another reason I'll say this. Like, Habesha girls don't work. Habesha girls don't go to college. Nobody can read. Like, it's all Habesha girls do is like cook injera and like marry and have children. That's the culture. That's what it is. I feel like most of the people who know that are a part of the culture. Other people just have never even heard of it. They don't even know what it is. I actually saw this comedian who was so funny because he was talking about how, like, I don't know, I think that Helen and Drake have dated for a while, but he made a compilation of all the times that Drake mentioned Habesha girls, and he got so specific that he started mentioning the ethnic tribes. I didn't even realize he did that. He was like, Oromo girls, Tigray girls. And this comedian was like, this nigga's trying to start a war, because there's literally a war between Oromo tribe and the Tigrayan tribe. There was like a whole genocide, but that's not even the point. The point is it's kind of funny because like this Canadian rapper knows what Ethiopian tribes are. Like, that's very strange, but if you know, you know. Like, if you don't, it probably just went all the way over your head. But if you know and you're a part of the culture, you're like, oh shit, how does he know who we are? I don't understand. Like, not the point. But do you see what I'm saying? Like, this girl is from this region of people who don't have experiences that are similar to hers. So her going out and doing something is actually very novel. It's very cool. It's something to talk about. But it's something that she's going to have to like normalize, because the other people around her wouldn't know what it is. They can't like relate to it because they haven't done it. They haven't heard of it. They haven't been there. They don't know. They only know the shit that they see. You see what I'm saying? Like, I guess that's another thing that's kind of interesting. And I guess like, not I guess. What's a good way to say this? And actually, I know exactly how to say this. The reason that I continue to follow Kelly Stamps, even though I don't agree with Kelly Stamps in her life right now, is because like Kelly Stamps is still black. And Kelly Stamps is still like a black content creator in the lifestyle space. It's important to know, if you're a black girlie, especially a black girlie who's online, you need to know what Kelly Stamps is doing, just because like realize there are other people of other races and other ethnic groups who won't know any black people. That's always how it is. Like, they won't have any black friends. They won't never talk to any black people, never. They will just see Sexy Red videos and be like, oh, the niggers are like that. And we will be like, you know what? I just hate them so much. Like, we will say that, but like, they're not subscribed here. So, I mean, there was like one girl who came over and I had to politely tell her to fuck off. But besides her, like, it's just us, right? So like, the point is you engaging with like the other black spaces so that you understand what's going on. So you understand what it means when the Jamaican girl goes to London and what her experience was. That's why like I introduced you guys to Lame Cobain, because you guys will probably travel to London, and just know that like Lame Cobain is like the plug of the city. So just go follow her if you want to know what to do, right? Like, or what's another good example? Actually, another good example is if you want to know what to do in Tennessee, go follow my Tennessee blog and do exactly what I did. Like, another thing, I didn't realize like how many people cared about Brazil. But I saw that Ogo just went to Brazil. She literally did the same thing that I did when I went to Sao Paulo. And I thought it was just like nothing, right? But like when I went with Rashad. So that like he was my guide. And then by me sharing about it, now I guess like I was her guide. And it was, you know, it just keeps going. But you're not starting from nothing. And I think that one of the reasons that this girl was so overwhelmed emotionally is because like she felt like all these experiences that she was having were in isolation. Like, it was like she was breaking too many barriers. Like, you there's not much shit that like you're gonna do for the first time in 2025 that somebody from the network hasn't done. If that's the case, then you just don't know enough people. You know what I mean? Like, that is kind of the thing. There's also another thing where I feel like, and I've introduced this to you guys, but I just want you to understand how it plays out. The bucketing system. I've talked about the bucketing system, but the bucketing system is like this. Now that Ogo has gone to Brazil, I can put Ogo, who's a person, right? I can put her in, she's like, actually, Ogo is Jamaican. Yeah, Ogo's Jamaican. So I can put her in the Brazil bucket, because I have a Brazil bucket, which is like other people who have been to Brazil, who have lived in Brazil. Mary Jane, for instance, is currently in Brazil. Kiana spent 3 months in Brazil. Ogo is now there. Rashad is there. I have like a little bucketed lane of people who understand things about that culture that I can talk to them about. But if I know that you haven't gone or been there, I'm not going to put you in the Brazil bucket because you don't know shit about Brazil. You see what I'm saying? But there's like other buckets, like you can talk about the theology bucket. Okay, so I'm not going to talk to fundamental Orthodox Christians about Buddhism because they probably don't know shit. You also don't want to talk to like San Diego yogis about Buddhism because they've never been to a temple. They only took a yoga class on Sunday. You see what I'm saying? So then there's like the Buddhism bucket. Or you could say like, okay, so let's talk about the people who are like well-traveled. Well, if you talk to somebody who's fucking been to Berkeley and San Francisco, you're probably not going to talk to them about backpacking through Europe, right? Because all they've done is take a fucking BART train. But maybe the person who spent like 6 months backpacking around Europe, you could put them in the Europe bucket or the well-traveled bucket. So there's all these like things kind of about these experiences where if you cluster correctly, you can understand that you and your interests live in all the buckets. But the new people that you're meeting, you can start to understand how to identify with them, given you have certain shared lived experiences. In my perspective, I think that this girl, Tyra, had a real issue because she didn't have enough black women in her other buckets. I don't know who was in her buckets, but from the stories that she's told thus far, there were some, we're going to call them quote unquote friends because they for sure were not there for her when she took her life. But there was some really awful boyfriend. He came up a couple times. There was some other trifling ex who had like made it back. There were people there, but these didn't, not only did they not feel like ride or dies, they kind of felt like let them goes, you know, like they weren't worth much. Yeah, I'm going to see if there's anything else from either one of these lists that's like useful to share here. Oh, she did talk about her intuition for a minute. There was like some weirdo at her church, and she said that she didn't feel like talking to him or something, or she was afraid of him in some way. I just thought that that was an interesting story because, yeah, I do think that if your intuition tells you that a man is a creep, listen to your intuition and get away from that man because he's a creep. So you could just start at the situation of like, that man is a creep, and you're probably going to be right 90% of the time. Yeah, so I don't even know if I can call this story sad. I mean, I go, okay, a life lost is sad. Let me take that back. It's more like her life was too sheltered. Like, she just knew too little to be this old. And I'm sorry, like, you gotta be real about this. Like, TikTok is real, okay? Like, Instagram, YouTube, these things exist to kind of literally, like, show you the world. It's like Google Maps, the interactive version. And I'm confused how if you have that, you'd be like, I don't know anybody who's, like, ever done this thing that's, like, 1 million people have made another video about it. It's like, well, shit, if you can't search, I can't help you. You know, like, because she for sure had the internet. She was able to upload. She was also able to travel. So, I'm not sure. We gotta have some, like, respective level of calling a spade, where it's like, you know, it's, have you ever heard the stories? You know, the people who are in those little small town churches, and there's like 15 people in the town, and they like bake cookies once a week, and they do that shit for 20 years. And you'll see a picture of like a woman who was like in high school, and then you'll see her 20 years later, and she legitimately looks like something from Halloween, because it's like the life has been like sucked out of her face. That's kind of where I feel like her life was going. It was just like so small, and so like the life was just like leaving. Maybe it's not funny, but it kind of is, because you'll see these people in real life and they come on YouTube. Oh my, it's Roseanne. It's Roseanne. It's exactly that. Everything goes back to Roseanne. I don't know why, but it just does. Actually, I do know why. Yes. So that was the point there. I wonder what the other videos are going to talk about, because I feel like she's kind of, besides her job and her loser boyfriend, it didn't really seem like there was too much complexity to this story. So I am kind of wondering, like, I'm hoping there's some, like, story arcs. I'm going to go get some coffee and then hopefully, like, get to the more interesting part of this story. I might even change pants, because unfortunately I sat on the wet dirt. But yeah, we'll come back, because there's still 7 more videos to go. So